Hello and welcome to L&D Done Right, presented to you by CD2 Learning and Nelnet Company. I am your host, Gil Williams. I'm super excited for the conversation today. I'm sitting beside me. I got Sara Grieshop with the American Association of Critical Care Nurses. So truthfully, I could not be sitting next to someone who it does better work for better people. So I'm super excited for the conversation today. Sara, why don't you say hello to everyone?
Hi, so thankful to be here today. I'm really excited to talk to you about learning done right and how this intersects with nursing.
Absolutely. You know, Sara, we've had a couple of opportunities to get to know each other. I'm looking forward to more, but I'm going to tell everyone, I'm going to throw you out there a little bit
Oh
here
gosh.
that you're going to wipe the floor with me from experience on these things. You've done way bigger and way better than I ever could on public speaking. I'm talking about a specific engagement. Do
I
you know what I'm
think
talking
I know
about? You
what
want to
you're
tell everyone
talking
a little
about.
bit about what I'm mentioning?
Yeah, I honestly never thought I was going to be a public speaker. Don't hold this against me, but I almost failed speech and never finished my nursing degree because I can put an IV in you from a mile away, but to get up and speak in front of others, I used to shake, cry. I mean, it was embarrassing. And then I'm a nurse and I'm in front of people all day long. And fast forward 15 years, and I'm on stage speaking to 5,000 nurses with Abby Wambach and talking about leadership, sounding like a Valley girl and loving every minute. And
Uh,
one of the things that Abby said when she came off the stage, she was like, I forgot they were out there. And I was like, I didn't. I saw every single pair of eyes. Like, who forgets they're there?
Yeah, what are you talking about? Heck no. I mean, I remember the first time I even did one of these recordings. There's nothing worse than when you can feel the voice start to bounce. You're like, uh-oh, uh-oh. But what I've found similar to what you just did, we talked about it a little bit before of just being able to laugh at ourselves when we go back and listen. But when you can just laugh at yourself in the moment, there's nothing better than being able to like actually feel confident talking, but also just sharing what I realize is all I'm doing is sharing my passion. I'm just talking to cool people,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. And honestly, that's what learning and development is because anytime I get up in front of a group and I'm talking to them, my passion wins through every time. And I totally forget that I'm even the one that's up there that they're listening to. I just get super excited to talk to them and share my love of nursing, share my love of learning, and it really just kind of streams out of me, kind of like right now.
Yeah. Well, good. That's what we're here to talk about today. At least you're not like me, where when I start to, I call it nerding out about L&D and all this stuff. But my ADD starts to kick in, and next thing you know, I'm like thinking of all these different things. Or in my brain, I'm connecting a lot of dots. But my wife always says when you're talking to me and my mouth gradually gets more and more wide open, it means I have no clue where you're going, and that's a stop, recenter, and let's start over.
I get it. I am pretty type A, so I feel like I have ADD in some ways, in some spaces, but my husband usually glazes over when I'm talking about the gore as a trauma burn ICU nurse stories that I would come home with, pretty much on
Yeah.
the day. So I feel like our spouses would probably have a lot in common.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And she loves laughing at me on these shows as well, Sara. So let's give her some things to laugh about at me for, I'm sure, throughout this. But why don't you kick us off with just telling us a little bit about you, your history, and how you got to where you're at. But then, if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about AACN as well and
Perfect.
the work you do with them.
Awesome. Yeah. So, like I said, my name's Sara. I am a ICU nurse at heart. I don't think that you can ever take that away from me. I spent 15 years working for a large tertiary academic hospital. I was in our trauma burn ICU. I saw really, really incredible things, really, really, really incredibly sad things. So I was always a natural leader and person that a lot of people gravitated to in the ICU. And so while I was working bedside, I often was a preceptor and a charge nurse. And that actually then led into my assistant chief nursing officer tapping me on the shoulder and really convincing me to get into insurance, to education, to education. And I just really kind of always led with, I'm the nurse who supports the nurse that supports the patient. And so education really just kind of became a seamless transition. And so I was teaching a ton at my hospital and started volunteering with AACN, who is our parent kind of nursing organization. It's the largest nursing organization in the country. We serve around 130,000 nurses who are in that critical and acute care space. And so I started volunteering with them first at local chapters. Really didn't know what I was getting into at that. My manager kind of drugged me there by the ear and was like, "You're going to do this." And I was like, cool. Can I bring my baby? And, showed up at the meeting. And then that turned into taking a regional role where I oversaw 17 chapters as a chapter advisor. And then I really started getting involved with the national office as a volunteer. And I was an ICU nurse through COVID. I worked the front lines with my nurses
I saw that little guy back there. That was too cute.
He's amazing.
You see just the inching along. That was too good.
Yeah, I was like, don't bother me. I'm gonna be live. Don't interrupt me. But so
we're all human. That's what makes us great, right?
Exactly. And we all work from home at some point, especially like I said, I was working COVID frontline supporting nurses as their educator, coming up with on the fly learning and development to kind of fly through the things that were changing minute by minute. And so I was heading into 2021 and had some big family things kind of going on, some tragic losses, as I think we can all associate and understand. And I was actually tapped on the shoulder to come to AACN as one of their clinical practice specialists. And really, that's just a fancy way for saying that I create the education, standard setting documents, give insight to certification and a variety of other things. And now I'm actually the manager of that team. I lead the team that creates pretty much all of that work. And I never thought I would leave the bedside. I never thought I'd leave the hospital setting. But yeah, I feel so incredibly lucky every day to know that I'm touching thousands of nurses and making their practice better. And where I went from being the nurse that supported the nurse who supports the patient in a one hospital setting, I am now touching nurses all across the nation and really around the globe with the work that we are doing through AACN. It's really kind of overwhelming, but also incredible when I sit down and think about it.
Oh yeah. I mean, we said that together almost when we first met, right? What I tell my team here every day is we're not here to provide a software, right? We're not here to just kind of like hand the keys over to our clients at CD2 Learning, right? We have an LMS, we've got a content management system, and we do great work with custom content development. But that's not what we're here for. We're here to support the people that support their communities, whether that's their teams or their communities like you and the nurses that come through your stuff. We're here to support them and help them, enable them to elevate the experiences that they're providing, right? And so similar to you, there's nothing more fruitful and rewarding than seeing how that can be an impact. And I love that that's the mindset that you took. And I'd love to dig in further how you kind of found your niche there, because in my career, I never had anyone. Well, I did. And he's actually the founder of our organization, was always the guy, Rich Bartlett. I'd call him so many different weird, odd hours. I'm thinking of this. What do you think I should do? But that was it. I didn't know how to learn. I didn't know how to develop. And especially in the workplace, it's really hard to find a mentor and resources to be successful and feel confident that you're on the right trajectory, right? Or you're doing the right things. And so what you do with your work now, but also starting just at the hospital with your specific team, and how that's grown, that's an amazing story, right? And it's just,
You
I
know,
think that there's so many people that found that valuable to their lives too.
and I hope so, because when it comes down to it, we're all just trying to put one foot in front of the other, getting through our day. And to be a nurse in this world right now is
Oh,
unlike it was 15 years ago when I got my start.
mhm.
By the way, I was 5 when I started nursing. And it's just, I look at my team, and I know this sounds like cliche, but I really just try to see each human for who they are and what they bring to the table. I have some incredible rock stars who are so happy to be front and center, and I have so many incredible rock stars who just want to be behind the curtain and they don't even want to show their face.
Mhm.
And it really takes learning who each one of them are to figure out how to develop each one of those. And when I was working at the bedside, I actually ran into that a lot too, because I was bringing on all of the nurses that were coming into critical care, and especially my progressive care unit, which is like intermediate between ICU and med surge, and my ICU. And so I would meet all of these brand new nurses, and sometimes you had to have that conversation of, you're just not getting it. You're a great nurse. You're just not a great nurse here.
Mhm.
And sometimes you got them where you're like, oh my gosh, can I make 15 more of you? Uh,
Yeah.
because development comes in so many different ways. It's the application of creativity met with that scientific background, and really seeing what makes each one of them come alive, what sets
Wow.
the spark off in their eyes. And you don't really do that the same way for anybody. So
No, and to be honest, we've had some really fun conversations here about how do you enable true individual personalized learning, right? True prescriptive learning, not um, buckets of potential pathways, and how do we build that and support that in all facets, whether it's med association to frontline workforce to corporate staff members in a sales role or whatever that may be. How do you truly understand that person? What do you have to do? What technology should you have to understand where they're at, where are their gaps, their specific gaps, right?
yeah,
How do we train on that? I think that there's too much going on right now of bucketed, pre-configured learning, even if they say they branch, right? But it's still buckets.
it
And
is.
so
And it still puts them into a box.
exactly.
So my
Exactly.
master's, I actually broke the mold, and my master's is in healthcare innovation.
Oh
When
wow.
you break that down, it's human-centered design. So I don't want to put people in boxes. I want to see their individualities shine.
Yeah.
And so through AACN, we're doing that through development of a new test. It's not really a test. I really should call it a tool that is going to be administered when nurses start at the bedside. And it's called a knowledge assessment tool. They go in, they take this, they see where their strengths are, because if you have strengths in 3 out of the 6 areas that I need you to when you're coming into the hospital, then I don't need to spend time on those. That is wasted learning time for you. And so we developed this tool. We are going to be offering it this fall, for us to really dive into that human-centered design of individualized learning. And then we also created the roadmap for the education and clinical nurse specialists who will be working with those new grads, then on how to continue with that education. And so whether it's through a learning platform such as yourself, but the courses can be loaded up, they can be administered for nurses to do around their orientation time, because really nothing replaces that hands-on learning. But when you can supplement it with some didactic information to take with them,
Yeah.
that's really kind of the sweet spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, where that gets really interesting, I'd love to understand, are you guys looking at ways to tying in actual on the job like results, like what's happening in the day to day and tying that into the analytics of how we're going to train those people as well as the assessment?
So I'm glad you asked that question because actually we are. And so one of the passion projects that I've been working on since I started at AACN is called our initial competence framework. And that really brings in synergy. So
Mhm.
looking at the 8 different pillars of holistic self. So not just looking at a checklist and saying like, oh, you're competent in these areas, you can go save lives. That's not always necessarily true. Like just because you've got great things on paper doesn't mean that you are understanding the P's and Q's and the Y's and everything that kind of goes into what it means to take care of a patient. And so we are looking at system thinking. We're looking at a variety of techniques that encompasses the entire nurse as a human so that we know
Mm.
that they are seeing the whole picture. And then that way that we know that they're seeing the patient for the whole picture.
That's really interesting. And you said a line there that is actually like kind of it makes you kind of take a step back and like, whoa, okay. Truthfully, are you ready to be in a position where you are tasked to save lives? Like that is what you do.
Yeah,
That's wild.
it is, and maybe it's just because I've always been a nurse and I'm a nurse like at my true core, but I see people get like riled up about things, on deadlines and I'm like, gosh, like, but did anybody die today? Or did anybody like the idea, like my husband's, come home and he'll be, like, oh, projects are delayed. And I'm like, okay, but nobody died today or nobody got hurt today. And, I think because I take that concept and apply it to my learning and development with nurses and with really even my own children, is that, we get another chance most days. We get another chance. And when you're learning and going through development of self or education or your role, we typically get another chance. We don't have to always get it right the first time. And I think that's something that's really important when we are going through education because, one of my most cherished professors from college, not my speech teacher,
Mhm.
but an English teacher who would give your papers back with suggestions of how to make it better. There was never really a grade given. It was just like, okay, so you've mastered this. So now like let's bring this layer in. And so when I kind of go through life, that's kind of the same concept that I apply. It's like, okay, you've mastered this layer. Let's look at the next one.
Yeah. Well, you've kind of you alluded to something there where that would I kind of build a vision or not enough L&D people think of it this way at learning environments is that it's an actual place that not only are you going through consuming information, but what it truly should be is a safe fail environment.
Yes.
It should be a safe fail place where people can test and try and grow from those failures, which I have failed so many times live, and there's no worse feeling in the moment. But then when you reflect back on it, I'll never do a lot of those things ever again, right? So, but if you can imagine an environment or technology or strategy that can implement those or integrate that safe fail into the overall journey, I wonder about how impactful can that be towards the people, but also for the organization that you're serving too, whether that's the corporate world or the hospital system that those nurses are working in.
Absolutely. I think everyone, whether you're in sales or education or nursing or engineering, insert literally anything there, we have to have a safe space to fail because as humans, to err is human. It's what we do. And nurses are often held obviously as our physicians, physical therapists, respiratory therapy, anybody that you want to insert into the healthcare realm. We don't always get a fail-safe space. And so
No.
we can go out of the hospital into a learning environment that is welcoming, that is kind, and gives us the opportunity to truly dig in and learn. You see people flourish. You see confidence soar. I can remember walking into simulations in nursing school, and much like my speeches, I would be shaking and scared to death because what if I mess up? And no one told me, hey, it's okay. this is a safe learning environment.
That's the point, is to mess up and try again.
Yes. And it has taken me far too many years to learn that lesson. And I think that's really, if and that's really what I loved about CD too when we were talking last week, because of I just felt so on the same plane as you and Lauren when we were chatting.
Yeah. Lauren's awesome, by the way, isn't she?
She is. She's lovely. Shout out to Lauren.
That's right. That's right. So you alluded to something earlier that I'd love for you to dig in deeper if that's okay. The
Okay.
power of hybrid learning, right? I totally agree with you. You cannot replace hands-on experience or human-to-human interaction. So I'd love you to dig into the power that tying in, documentation, content, other external contents or asynchronous content to those experiences that are in person, human to human, and then maybe even tying in a safe fail sort of experience into that overall journey. How do you why is that powerful, or what is the science behind that, right? You're the expert. I'd love you to dig into why you think that's personally important that people start to adopt.
Hybrid learning, I think, has kind of, just like hybrid work right now, I think it kind of has a bad rap. And there's people that are like, oh, with hybrid learning, they're just rushing through it and they're not going to really retain anything. But really, when you kind of dig into the data and you look at that scientific background, you see that hybrid actually is incredibly supportive. So when you have documentation that someone could go off and practice doing, then when they are in the moment, it becomes almost secondary to them. They don't have to think about what they're doing. And so when you are applying that, I teach virtually on occasion, and when I need to be looking over your shoulder to understand that you're getting it. And when I see the papers that you're turning into me, or the information that's kind of being brought back to me, then I know that, I can send you examples and you're going to study it and you're going to look at it and you're going to then apply that to your real life. And a lot of that comes with the work that I do, whether it's in the ECMO realm or CRRT. And when it's, super hands-on work that has to be done, but you can't provide always that education super hands-on. And so it's trusting those in the team that's around you that you're providing the best that you can. A fail-safe for me was, once and I'll never forget to draw this ever again in my life if I go back to the bedside. But I had a patient who was going through respiratory distress, and I grabbed the labs, I was monitoring kind of everything that was going on, and but I forgot to get a blood gas at 6 a.m. and I had gotten mine at midnight, and we were doing like these serial blood gases, and the nurse comes in and just screams at me, and she's like, well, how could you forget to get the blood gas? And I was just like, well, it's like 6:52, like I'm not that late, like I can still get it, like I'm still within the hour, I'm still okay, but they scared me so incredibly much that then I second guessed myself with that patient and I went home to bed. So all day long I'm sleeping, waking up and thinking about this patient. And when you're hybrid, you can't instill that you want to I'm not saying you can't instill, but you want to instill that you trust one another.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to instill that, this might be the biggest thing that they're facing, the biggest challenge they are facing today as a learner. And do you really want them scared of you and
especially in your environment,
what they're doing? Because that's not how I want anybody to learn, and I want to, focus on the possibilities of what's to come, and really what they can even teach me in the situation for all of us to improve and do better.
I mean, especially in your environment where someone's health is in the hands of that professional, right? And I say the same thing in all of our conversations as we're going. Do you want your team to feel like they operate with questions every day, or do you want them to feel confident that they can go out and represent you and what they do really well and do it in an effective manner? Like that is what we're talking about here, is giving them the confidence, the happiness, and the courage to go out and execute and put that's the strategies and the technology that we're putting out there. How do we
And
do that from onboarding day one to
yeah,
job skill trainings to their, hey, you're a great potential leader. Let's get you the resources you need to continue to develop as a leader and put
yes,
those pathways really seamlessly. And it's human nature to want to feel like you're doing good things and like you're doing a good job. And so if you can create that and build strategies around that, but also take that mindset as a leader and an instructor, like that is what we're here to do, is to enable.
it is. And that's one of the things I really love about AACN is that we're built on the foundation of authentic leadership, of
Yeah.
equal recognition, of executive decision making. And we really try to empower not only those of us at AACN, but those are the competencies then that we turn around and empower into those around us.
Yeah.
Uh, Not just nurses, I work with for a wide variety at the national office. It's from marketing to sales to B2B to communications, and those are still principles that each and every one of us live by.
Oh yeah.
It's important because, you know, words of affirmation are important whether you're at home or at work. You need others to know that they're doing what they need to be doing and that you value what they bring to the table.
But those can be direct words of affirmation. They can be through results of what they're doing and the fun they're having and in their like in their learning progress. Like that's all a part of it, right?
Yeah, it is. And I've been accused of being maybe too sunny, too cheerleady. But that is really something that always resonated with those that I was um engaging with, because I want to be their cheerleader. I want to be the one that's, celebrating them, because then when I do sit down to talk to them about areas of improvement,
Yeah.
then they're not afraid to hear what I have to say because they know that I believe in them. I also just see where the potential could go.
Well, I saw something recently that essentially the study that was said was they had these groups of kids and they segmented them out. And, based on the results, one group, they said, hey, you're so smart, versus the other, they said, hey, you great work. You're working so hard. Like great, like you're doing a great job. Right. Well, that it was in the results when they reassessed the same kids as the ones you said, hey, you're so smart, felt like they had accomplished it, right? But the
Yeah.
words of
And I mean,
affirmation to the others was like, hey, you're working so hard, like way to work hard.
yeah,
They felt confident to go try again and to excel at the next challenge and the next and the next.
I
That's
same one, weirdly enough. Because I was like, gosh, we really do need to focus on rewarding effort, because if you think that you've already, you hear you're so smart, well then, yeah, why would you try any harder? Because you're smart, you got this.
yeah.
And, and then we do stop. And like, so where does that intrinsic motivation come from?
Where I laugh about it, and I said the same thing. I've got a grumpy uncle that I told the same thing to, and he just goes, that's that light blue ribbon participation stuff. I'm like, no, it's not rewarding someone and telling them they're great. Like that's where that falls into.
Right.
You're telling them, you're praising them for their effort, and which gives them the confidence to keep trying and keep trying again. And so it's not providing reward,
No.
it's providing affirmation.
I coach a first grade soccer team, and they you see it with them. If I am like, oh, great, great shot, great kick, and or way to stay after the ball, when, and those, but if I'm like, oh yeah, like you're the best kicker on the team, then
Yeah.
I have one that would literally just kick it from goal to goal every day versus, trying to go after the ball and doing what is needed to do. But
Exactly.
it's I see nothing wrong with making sure that we praise effort in all of us, and not just children, but in all of us.
I think that there's something to that. And when you praise effort and you position that with advice or opportunity for them to develop, like they're more open-minded to it. It's like, oh, I'm doing a good job. I'm also going to try these things too. It'll make me better.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the kids that become coachable. And that's
Exactly.
the adults that become coachable. And, and then those are the ones that become lifelong learners. Because if you're a dork like me, like you just don't ever stop.
Yeah. I still need to learn. I've got a lot. I've got a lot out there. I got to catch up for a lifetime or a childhood of not focusing. So I'm an adult learner. Um, I'd love if it's okay. I'd like to pivot a little bit, and your association does fantastic work.
They
I'd
do.
love for you to talk about the power of providing, as an association, providing opportunities for continued learning to support your members, right? What is the power of providing that and the opportunity that they should really consider as an association, from continued learning opportunities, whether it be that to CME credits, and things of those natures. If that's something you'd be willing to share.
Absolutely. That's really kind of who AACN is that we really kind of we started as the American Association of Cardiovascular Nurses, and then pivoted into all of critical care. And every year we have a new theme as our board president assumes the role in July. And so every year we are constantly looking at that, because our nurses come to us for really three main buckets. They come to us for their certification, to say, yes, I have what it takes to be a leader and excel in my field. So they come for their CCRN, their PCCN, and a plethora of other certifications that we offer, but those are really our two big ones. They come to us as really the gold standard for standard setting documents, for the education that they are providing to themselves, knowing that it has gone through a rigorous level of evidence, details and creation. We are constantly updating our courses to reflect that. And then our CE Center is fast. And, as a nurse, I actually had created a way to bring competency to the bedside through my master's degree, and how you could align the work that you're doing at the bedside with your ongoing annual competency. And through that work, I actually looked at what each nurse in every state has to then provide from a continuing education standpoint. And so for me in Ohio, I have to have 24 credits plus one legal CE every 2 years. And so knowing that, we constantly are building and creating new CE content to put into our area, because you don't want to just keep taking the same courses that you can click through.
No.
We have to continue to build what we are. And so AACN really prides itself when we renew our CEs for 3 years, and then we start looking for that new, and, I don't want to say better evidence, but we're constantly looking at the evidence to make sure that we're staying on the cutting edge. And that really meant something to me when I was pivoting from the bedside, and part of my personal journey, not to get emotional, but I started at AACN in July, or in April of 21, and in July of 21, I was diagnosed with cancer, and went into this whole thing, and it's been just such an incredible place for me to thrive and heal, so that I can say today that I'm a cancer thriver, and no longer dealing with, not that I'm no longer dealing with it. I still have annual checks, and I just graduated to that actually last week. So,
Congratulations,
but
Sara.
the work that I get to do is I still get to reach out and touch all these thousands and thousands of nurses, because something like AACN exists, and because we are constantly at the front line, advocating for safe staffing. We are advocating for better treatment of nurses, of getting nurses to the table for when decisions are being made. We have a team that goes out, and they are doing national advocacy to make sure that our voice is constantly rising. And our president theme right now is rising together. And so she says, if we rise together, we lift each other up. Rising together, we will advance our journey How will you use your confidence, your voice, your presence to create the future of nursing? And Terry Davis, who is our current president, like that's really kind of our North Star, is how do we continue to elevate that voice and elevate who we are for nurses, with nurses, and by nurses.
Oh, I love that. I think that I'd love to understand from your perspective why choosing the right partners, technology, content, why that, where that fits for you and importance levels, because we recognize pretty early a lot of the technology that we built into our system. We recognized it's so important not only to create a great experience for the individual user, but it's a community aspect, right? You're there together with the community, growing together. And so being able to tie human to human interactions, whether it's in person, virtual, or even through technology and within the system, and being able to at your own time interact with your peers and your community through technology, we recognize that that's so important. So we've built a lot of these things over time with our clients, recognizing that importance. And then on top of that, giving the tools, but also the teams around to support. Content changes, society changes, and so we have to be constantly managing that and updating the look and feel, so that again the community that we're serving through all that is feeling like it's important. It's not mundane and boring. They're excited to go through. So where does technology from an importance standpoint for you sit for you and delivering that experience?
Sorry, a little human just fell off their bike outside of my window. I got a little sidetracked on them, but it looks like they're okay. They're up and walking.
It's all good, all good.
Technology to me is really just kind of, it's where we are in life.
Yeah.
When you think about AI, when you think about our platforms that we're utilizing, and really kind of the mission of AACN is, we are meeting patients and their families at the most vulnerable time in their lives. And so in order for us to have access to the most cutting edge technology and work, really is the most impactful right now, and the work that you do as one of our, a platform supplier is equally important, because if I'm creating information and getting it out there, well, I only have so much space on social media or LinkedIn or whatever. It really, we rely on you. We rely on our partners to help us reach the masses. We know that just like anything, we can't do this alone. We have to have these partnerships. We have to have these open lines of communication, and we have to have the appreciation and trust of each other, because without your effort, my effort really then is minimal, because I'm only going to reach a certain percentage, where with you, I'm going to reach the masses.
You went in a direction there that I love, and then you mentioned a word a couple times that I'd like to call out, and I think it's so important, especially with what you do. But I hope more technology companies recognize this, is that it truly is a partnership.
Yeah.
And I hope more people adopt that. There's too many people in this software as a service space where it's software as and period. That is it, right? It's not like, and most people don't adopt that. Remember that it truly is a service, and there's a team around you, and we're the partner. You have to be a partner in their efforts, or else it's kind of a sink or swim with the shark sort of experience. And so I'm glad that you brought that up, because it truly is a partnership. And that's where organizations can start to feel like, oh, you know what? I see what our hard work is doing now. It's not just transactional, like, hey, take my tech and talk to you later.
Right.
It's so important to remember that this is good work, that we're impacting people's lives. And I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, it's all about the show up. I've worked with vast number of, of different tech groups, whether it's medical device or whatever. And, I was working with Fresenius or Next Stage when COVID hit. We were rolling out brand new CRRT machines for continuous renal replacement therapy. And I was transitioning 600 nurses from Baxter to Next Stage. I don't know if I'm allowed to say company names, but that's a lot of work. And they showed up for us. And really that's kind of what was the selling point for me. It was because they showed up for us. They saw what we were dealing with. They may not have understood it as much that, what was occurring right away, but none of us did. But it was all in the customer service. And when you show up and are that support versus, like you said, just a wham bam, thank you, ma'am, like sale, like you get those lifelong customers then, and that's really hard to come by.
Relationships, Sarah. It's relationships, right?
Yes, yes, Gil, relationships.
Exactly. There you go. Just like I think that it's just so important. And we've kind of touched on it in a few different ways, but it's remembering that the person that's going through the experience on the other side is a human being, and that we're here
Yeah,
to help them and help them find happiness in whatever it is.
yeah, none of us are robots, and none of us are um doing this alone. And that's, I think, when you find like those values that are rooted in, um,
Yeah.
you start to find other like-minded people, and we can start to make change. Because let's be real, the world's kind of a dumpster right now. So
Oh yes, it's an interesting one. You're never not entertained.
no, no, you're not.
If you can sit back and laugh like we've said, then it'll be an entertaining one.
It will. And I think as long as we always remember to keep that at the forefront, we'll continue to make learning fun.
Exactly. Well, Sarah, I could sit here and talk to you all day.
I mean, same.
Yes. Well, I won't do that to you, nor our listeners. We'll have a lot of people drop off at like 45 to an hour or long, something like that. But if you were to leave one thought with everyone, what thought would that be as they're starting to think about these things? It doesn't even have to be about L&D.
Just be kind. Be the change that you want to see in the world. And you never know what ripple you will make today could cause waves tomorrow.
Amazing. Sarah, thank you so much. And lastly, congratulations. Thank you for sharing your story with us. You've been listening to L&D Done Right by CD2 Learning and Nelnet Company. Sara Grieshop with AACN. Thank you so much, Sarah. Say goodbye to everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. It's been such a pleasure today.
Thank you so much.